So hi everyone, building an economic base for Dotsama. Welcome to Mangata Monday. Dan Reecer, hello.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're glad you're joining us today. We have been in talks about the partnership for a few weeks and months actually already. We made the announcement, I guess, 2 months ago, and we agreed that we will be having you on the show. And so it's really great to have you here today.
Yeah, congrats on all your guys' progress too. It's been fun. I heard about you guys obviously a long time ago, and then it's kind of cool to see you guys get up and running, get the bootstrap underway, and then yeah, really just kind of building at a really good time. So congrats on all your guys' success too.
Yes. Yeah, it was a really intense time for the whole team in the previous weeks, and I think we are all glad that we have made this step because it felt a lot bigger than even launching the chain, even though that was an adventure on its own, but concluding the bootstrap felt a whole lot different for us.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I guess many or most of you here know you on the channel, but we are also doing a recording, of course. So maybe would you like to give a short introduction who you are and what Acala is?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I'm Dan Reecer. I'm leading a growth team at Acala. Been here for about a year and a half now, surprisingly. Um, so I guess yeah, I've been here. I'm leading the growth team, which is focused on business development and marketing. And then prior to this, I've just been in the Polkadot ecosystem for a while. I was at Web3 Foundation before and focused a lot on Polkadot and Kusama. So obviously a big Dotsama fan and will be for a long time going forward. And then yeah, Acala itself. So Acala was co-founded by actually 4 co-founders, primarily based in Auckland, New Zealand. And the 4 of them started building Acala about 3.5 years ago when they realized that, well, first of all, they were building on Ethereum and they were evaluating like Cosmos and ETH2 and Substrate and Polkadot, and decided to go with Polkadot. And then as soon as they started building in the Polkadot ecosystem, they realized that there was going to be a very big need for a decentralized stablecoin to kind of serve all of the different future parachains that would be connecting to Polkadot, which in theory will be up to 100, but most likely will be much bigger than that in the future. So anyway, we built aUSD as a stable coin. It's over collateralized. You can kind of think of it as a multi-chain version of DAI. And then we built a parachain around the stable coin, which is becoming kind of like a liquidity or DeFi platform for mostly financial applications, but also getting a lot of traction in the actually surprisingly the enterprise loyalty point space. We're going to be announcing a lot of stuff around that relatively soon, and then of course all the DeFi kind of use cases that that you typically see. So yeah, through that we're working with Mangata X and Mangata on both the Kusama and Polkadot side with aUSD integration. So we've already opened up our basically like cross-chain channel or HRMP channel, if you want to call it the technical way, which enables us to send tokens back and forth between chains. So yeah, looking forward to the first kind of aUSD pairs going live on Mangata X, and then like you just kind of mentioned, getting CAR and then ACA sent over to your guys' networks as soon as that's ready.
Yeah. It's really interesting what you're building with aUSD. I have 2-3 weeks ago, I have read the Acala and aUSD white paper again, and I think you have made Acala has made the perfect choice among the fields of possible stablecoin variations on what to choose that is decentralized, that is safe in comparison to other stablecoins that we have seen collapse recently, and just has chosen the right structure. And also the bootstrapping of Karura and Acala has been done in a way that creates that economic base, and that's also the reason of why we called the talk today the way we called it, because aUSD, I think, is going to be the thing that enables a lot of the economic activity in the ecosystem in the future.
Yeah, definitely. We even sometimes, like, if you just think about a regular economy, even back to like when like factories and the Industrial Revolution was beginning, you don't start to see economic activity without a base economic medium of exchange. So that's what we're trying to build with aUSD, is basically a stable medium of exchange for every participant on any application to use, whether it's DeFi products or whether it's things like marketplaces or payments or even gaming. Pretty much every use case has a need for a stablecoin, so that's what we're looking to provide. And then, yeah, as you mentioned, over the past month or so, a lot of the people around the industry have just started to realize that every stablecoin is not created equally. Leading up until the UST kind of debacle, everyone just assumed that a stablecoin was a stablecoin that's pegged to $1, and that's all you have to worry about. But now it's actually a very good thing. Everyone's starting to look into the details as far as how these stablecoins work. So even centralized and fiat-backed stablecoins like USDT are starting to get some scrutiny. And then USDC, I have seen is doing a lot of work around like transparency and being transparent about their auditing processes and things like this. So we've been doing the same thing, just explaining to people how aUSD works and how kind of a crypto-backed over collateralized stablecoin works. So there are a couple of videos on the Acala YouTube if anyone listening is interested in the details. I definitely don't have time to go into all that on this call, but we've spent some time explaining this on the Acala YouTube channel. If it's interested.
What I find very fascinating with Acala and the work you're doing is, so Karura and Acala were basically the first parachains to onboard on Dotsama and Polkadot. And I think it's very fascinating to follow the journey of the work you've been doing and how you've been becoming more and more established, and now reached out more and more to other parachains, which of course wanted to connect to you and other protocols, and are sort of in this goal of being the DeFi hub, becoming this point where a lot of the chains first connect to you, and you also build all those partnerships where you are working towards bringing aUSD to all of the parachains. So it must be very interesting to be with your team and see. I don't know. I can imagine you have maybe a 50 or 100 actively tracked partners that you're working with every month.
Yeah, it's been really cool to see everything kind of go from like the launch of Polkadot and Kusama, and like the problem with that is that it just took so long for all the parachains to be able to launch, because Polkadot's just been kind of built from scratch, which is a good thing. It's being built for the long term. But now it's fun to see everything kind of come to fruition and become a reality. All in this Mangata Monday text chat, I'm pasting a link here. Greg, he actually leads integrations for Acala. He made this, and it's really cool. It's a live look at all the channels that have been opened up between different parachains. Yeah, you're showing it there. So this is really cool to just kind of like bookmark and just watch it evolve over time, because these are, I guess right here you're showing the Kusama one. So these are all the live Kusama channels, and then if you switch to Polkadot, it's a little bit less developed because everything's still so much newer. But yeah, this is just kind of like this is reality of what's happening right now on chain. So all these Kusama based parachains are getting kind of connected, and this allows people to transfer tokens between chains. And then the next thing to come is definitely like multi-chain applications and multi-chain use cases between all of these different chains. So if you think about like teams like Kintsugi, who's doing trustless Bitcoin, using that to potentially send to Karura and mint aUSD, and then you could send that aUSD over and provide liquidity on Mangata X, for example. So there's just a lot of really mind-blowing use cases that are kind of about to go live in the next probably 6 months, 6 to 12 months on Polkadot. And everyone who's been kind of doubting Polkadot is, in my opinion, about to be proven wrong, because this really is going to be kind of the next, one of the biggest narratives of the next, I think, 5-10 years is going to be Polkadot and Kusama.
Yes, I think you can very clearly see this. So I started to become interested more in crypto about 5 years ago, and I was reading about Ethereum and was reading, oh, okay, basically it's just a virtual machine on the blockchain. This just has to work. This has to be a success because you can build a computer on a blockchain. And last year, I slept a little bit through the bear winter, but last year I came back and then I was reading through all of the new stuff that developed in the last 3 to 5 years, and I was reading on Polkadot and Kusama, and at the first 2 times it didn't click, but then when I was reading for it for the 3rd time, I was just thinking, oh, you have the relay chain, and it just doesn't care about most of the stuff that happens. It just enables chains to log onto it and compete for offering the best services to everyone. And so it can even be a competition between EVM chains. It can be a competition between anything, automation or bridges. And so because it just doesn't care about a lot of the stuff in comparison to Ethereum, it is much more fit to evolve over the long term and just allow the best features to survive long term. Everything that isn't needed will go away after some time or just not be as successful. And that was a very interesting insight for me, because it showed that it's really a very long-term perspective. And maybe one last point. People became very impatient because parachains were rolling out and then were feeling that nothing is happening. But I think the same was true 5 years ago for Ethereum, because just because there was a lot of opportunity didn't mean that it was there from day one. Everyone has just start to develop everything and grow into the culture and the technology. And I think we will see it very similarly in Polkadot and Kusama in the coming years.
Yeah, totally agree. There's just, the other thing about Polkadot is that's interesting is just that we're also kind of heading towards this world where there's multiple blockchains, but they're all built for specific purposes. The thing about Ethereum is that it's trying to be everything. It doesn't matter if you're a game or a DeFi project or an IoT dApp. Everyone is forced to use the same general tech platform, so it's actually not really good at anything. Polkadot's taking a different approach with, of course, there's some more general chains, but then there's also multiple chains like Mangata X, Mangata, Acala for stablecoins. Let's see, like Nodal for IoT, for example. And I would say that the word competition we have to use lightly in the Polkadot ecosystem, because if only one team does well, then we all lose. We need everyone to be successful on Polkadot and working together, because like what I'm most excited about seeing is things that can be done only on Polkadot or only with Substrate that can't be done anywhere else because of the technical limitations of other networks. So that's where we're headed, is all these teams are working together, being very supportive of one another. And yeah, definitely exciting to see like how this really starts to take shape over the next couple of years.
Yes, I think this is also going to be a very important step, that you have the individual chains, but XCM will be the language that connects them all. And I think what we're going to see in the coming years is something similar to the API REST model that you have in Web 2. You will see something similar in Web 3, and it's going to be XCM and maybe IBC on Cosmos. But those are going to be very powerful. Okay. I would like to lead over. So something that fascinates me about your journey, Dan, is you've started at Web3, at the Web3 Foundation, and basically were also leading communications or growth there. What was your exact role?
It was growth and community. So it was more, I'd say more focused on like marketing and community. The word growth is used in very different ways now. But yeah, that was mostly a marketing role. My career, I mean, my whole career basically has been in like marketing, branding, digital marketing, and then even in crypto, I've mostly done marketing work. And then in this job at Acala, just because of need and just my personal interests and just things growing so much, I started taking on a lot of the business development work with Betty, and now we just hired two guys, Robinson and Nicholas, who both are kind of co-leading our BD team now, which has helped out a ton. So yeah.
Must be a very interesting journey when you basically first build or help build and grow the community on the technical base, and now you're part of the team that builds the economical base. So in all aspects, you were always spend your time on building the base for all of this stuff to happen on top of it.
It's been cool, especially like on the Polkadot side. It's been fun just to see everything evolve because the guy that hired me at Web3 Foundation, his name's Hutch. He's also he's a co-founder of Zeitgeist, it's a prediction market parachain on Kusama that is going to be going live very soon. And yeah, Hutch hired me, and then we actually worked a lot on the Polkadot ambassador program. So we were recruiting or just onboarding a lot of developers and technical people who have gone on to do a lot of really cool things, many of which have actually been hired at Parity. I think they've hired like 15 Polkadot ambassadors. And then on the non-technical side, like people like I just saw Zoe last week in New York, or where was that? In Austin. And she was leading the Polkadot presentations at Consensus. And I still remember like the first onboarding call with her in the ambassador program and being impressed by her. And yeah, like this Joran, he's at Parity now. He runs the podcast for them. And yeah, Irina, she's working at Unique Network. So it's been fun to just like build a network of friends and then see everyone do really cool things over time.
I had similar thoughts. So I was at my first Polkadot conference at Amsterdam recently, and I was very excited because I was thinking, okay, maybe in a few years there are still many of those people around, and then you have known them for many years, and they have all done this
For sure.
similar journey. That's going to be interesting. One thing that I find very curious, and I had this thought in the recent days. So you see the downturn of the market, and you see quite a few entities crashing, so companies, but also protocols. And okay, so one reason why we don't see anything like this in Polkadot is that it is not as developed yet. But I think also that parachains offer sort of because of their complexity, they offer a mechanism that prevents scammers or people that won't be there for the long run to become disincentivized to even try for too long. And I think we have seen some projects that looked a little bit suspicious, at least to me, and they all stopped trying to get on chain after some time. And I don't know, how do you think about the values of the different ecosystems? And I guess you can see something good in every big ecosystem. But what do you think about the values or the core values that each ecosystem talks about a lot and how it influences their long-term perspective?
Yeah, one thing about Polkadot and like Gavin Wood and the team at Parity and Web3 Foundation is that they're very much like your stereotypical like cypherpunk hardcore crypto people. Even the way that they chat with like other developers, they use Element, this piece of shit chat platform that they only use because it's completely end-to-end encrypted. So they don't want to use Slack. They don't want to use Discord. They care most about the underlying tech, even of their day-to-day chat platform, which to me that speaks a lot to just their general kind of outlook on how things should operate. So that's one thing with Polkadot, is that it's being built the right way. It's decentralized. There's not like a few VCs that own all the DOT tokens. It's very distributed amongst VCs and amongst just regular holders. And then the other thing is just decentralization of the parachain. So one thing about Polkadot is that it allows easy kind of governance to be implemented into any parachain ecosystem. So this allows you to change and evolve with the community through decentralized voting amongst the token holders. One thing that I was shocked to see in the last 2 days or day is this whole Solend thing on Solana, where they were able to basically take over one of these accounts in a complete. I mean, it's basically like a bank seizing funds of an account. But I do believe that vote got overturned, probably for PR reasons and things like that. But anyway, that's just one small example of what I really don't think would be possible, and definitely wouldn't have passed if that was proposed in the Polkadot ecosystem, because that's just against kind of the whole kind of ethos of crypto. And yeah, I mean, that's the thing too about these developers, is that Gavin and Rob and all these guys at Parity are kind of, they set the tone at the top as the original co-founders, and then people like Brian Chen and Betty on our team kind of follow suit, and like we all kind of follow and believe in the same ethos that Polkadot has set since the beginning. So other ecosystems have kind of optimized for other things. So obviously Polkadot hasn't had the adoption yet that other chains have. But it's because those chains have chosen a lack of decentralization in exchange for speed. So like a fast blockchain, fast to market, fast adoption in the developer ecosystem. But many of these ecosystems are going to probably either face things like fines or just like regulatory pressure because of their lack of decentralization. So I think the way Polkadot's going about it is the right way. It's the most long-term thinking. And just, things like Substrate allow us to build flexible networks that are able to just upgrade and evolve along with the needs of the market. I think one thing right now that's on our mind is if you look at Bitcoin, it's really still the only fully decentralized and unstoppable network in crypto. So what's also likely going to start happening, especially with all these things happening with Celsius and Terra and everything, there's just going to be more need to be able to comply and create instances of our products that are compliant with different jurisdictions and KYC needs for institutions and things like this. So that's another good thing about Polkadot, is that it's so flexible, and we can kind of reshape the way the tech is built along with the needs of the market.
Yeah, that's also a thought that I had carried with me the recent days, because the way Polkadot, Bitcoin, there are some questions on the economic feasibility long term, and I see these discussions happening more and more. And also personally, I'm not too fond of it because of proof of work. But on the other hand, I don't see yet another ecosystem that would be fit to be in a position where you could say, take this token and it could be used by hundreds or thousands of people. And at the moment, we are rather carving out Web3 and carving out those individual services that could be used and offer a lot of new use cases. So to me, it seems that it is much more at the moment, the focus of the whole crypto industry at the moment is much more about building out Web3 use cases and actually not building out money. So aUSD is fit for serving as a stable coin. But the question is, will there be a coin that will be very prevalent or omni-existent among the planet, or is it much more about the use cases that we're going to see, and then we use the coins and tokens just as a tool to help us to actually get to the Web3 use cases?
And you're talking about aUSD specifically, or?
No, not aUSD specifically, but I don't think that Bitcoin will be successful long term because I think the economic base that is based on a fee system could crumble at some point. But
yeah,
it's just a philosophical debate. There could be different opinions. But if you compare it, there is no other token that could take its place because, for example, Ethereum is just so dependent on technological innovation, and every other token is also just dependent on economical innovation and technical innovation, I mean. And so this is sort of, I see this as like a dilemma. There is not really a token that I think is really fit to be considered as money in the future. And a lot of people are carrying this idea of crypto taking the position of money. But in my current thinking, it's much more about the applications that are going to get enabled. And if we take, for example, aUSD as a means to get that economic activity within, for example, Dotsama, and you say, I buy aUSD because with that I can then use all of the ecosystem, this is meaningful, but it seems to be very much based on the different ecosystems and what you can do within them. I wonder if we can overcome this in the long term.
Yeah, I agree. I actually have been thinking a lot about the Bitcoin stuff that you brought up, and I need to read more about it because I don't understand well enough what happens when these mining fees run out. Anyway, that's a different topic, but I'm interested if you have anything to read about that and like what happens if transaction fees don't keep increasing. On your other question, yeah, it's pretty hard to predict. One way that we think is like we're not going to go straight into Web3 from Web2. The majority of the world is still using regular apps, and even for normal people like my parents or grandparents to use apps, they actually use a lot of apps on iPhones and stuff, but that's even pushing it on in terms of like technical complexity. So what we're thinking at Acala is like we want to help bring a lot of people into crypto without them having to even really know that they're using crypto. So we're starting to kind of refer to it as Web 2.5, but even aUSD, like if someone's using an app, even on an iPhone or Android, we want them to be able to interact with our kind of backend in the crypto world, probably using aUSD, but for them, they shouldn't even really need to know that it's this other thing called aUSD. It should just be $1 or USD for them.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then it also depends on the ecosystem. So we're building aUSD first and foremost for Polkadot and Kusama. That will already be a big enough opportunity. But then, of course, once adoption is kind of reached in that world, then aUSD will definitely go to other blockchain ecosystems and other infrastructure providers like trading desks and exchanges and things like that. But the same thing is happening on other networks. So I know Near and then like Polygon and Avalanche, like everyone's starting to like realize that they need a stable coin, and even Cosmos is building something very similar to aUSD. So this is also probably going to be the case where all these different ecosystems and like sub economies within the crypto ecosystem have their own tokens that are native to that community, which is fine. But then through things like Wormhole and other cross-chain solutions, there will be ways of kind of trading in and out of those native currencies. But yeah, the way we really want to make it as easy as we can for mass market people to start using crypto. And I think in the next bull run, like in the next adoption phase, it's going to be, I think the biggest wins are going to be people who can figure out how to bring a lot of people from the traditional Web 2 world into crypto and enjoying the benefits of crypto, like things like high yield savings and payments, like quick payments, but in a way that they don't feel like they're interacting with crypto, because the user experience in crypto is just horrendous right now. That's just too hard for normal people to use. So I think that's the biggest opportunity in the near term. And then, of course, where we're building towards is full Web3, but there's still a lot of things that need to happen for that to take place. The average person in the world doesn't care at all about decentralization. They care about user experience. So I don't know, in the next 10, 20 years, there may be a moment similar to what happened in Ukraine when decentralized money or transfer of money became important. There's probably going to be more events in the world that happen that start to make decentralization matter. Just like other kind of aspects of crypto have already begun to matter, like speed of payments and higher yields. There will be something that happens with regulators, and maybe it's central bank digital currencies in places like China or the US, or other events that kind of force people to realize why people like Gavin Wood have been talking about Web3 and decentralization since like 2014.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a bunch of random thoughts.
No, I think that's just the right direction. It's basically I often like to look at my phone and even compare parachains to phone apps, because Polkadot or Kusama are like the operating system of the phone, so it's like Android or iOS, and all the apps you install are the parachains that are coming on there. And I think it helps a lot because you think about how would you build an app for a phone? How easy would it have to work? And I think it gives you a lot of direction. In a way, at some point, it might be that we have an app on the phone and it allows you to just get access to all of the features of Polkadot in a single app, in a way. Yeah, you were mentioning the next cycle, and this is also something, because so you were saying the next cycle could be about mass market adoption and ease of use, and so it seems to hint that cross-chain could be an important part of that. Are you seeing also other essential components that will be important as narrative devices, or something that people will talk a lot about in the next cycle?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but cross-chain is going to be really interesting, especially on Polkadot, where everything is kind of in the same universe, like secured by the same relay chain of Polkadot. So I think another thing that's interesting to watch for is just natively multi-chain dApps that are built on top of, like, if you think of it like a I don't know, like a chair with like four legs going down. That's what apps will start to look like on Polkadot, where they plug into different parachains kind of under the hood, but to the user it feels like they're only using one app. So that's one unique thing that Polkadot will be able to offer, is just natively multi-chain apps. One team is already, actually a couple teams are already working on that, at least that I know of. One team called MuFi, who's building a music finance application. These are like 10, 15-year music industry veterans in the DJ space. And they've identified this problem where it takes artists 6 to 18 months to get paid by Spotify after they have a stream on Spotify. So they're actually building, using blockchain to take that Spotify API data and insert that into an NFT. And using Centrifuge, people can actually lend money to a pool, and then the artist can take an advance on their money for what they already know that they are owed by Spotify. It's really cool. And then that advance will be given in aUSD, and then the artist will, like, the whole app will live on Acala, and then the artist will have access to just like earning yield if they want to. But that's like a cool example of an already kind of natively multi-chain dApp that, to the artist who's getting paid when they deserve to be paid, It just feels like they're using MuFi, but under the hood, it's leveraging all these technical things like NFTs and lending pools and stable coins through Centrifuge and Acala on the back end without the artists really even needing to know that. So that stuff is already being built right now. And then, yeah, it should be going live sometime, hopefully in the next year or so. So
That's really interesting. I also like this when I think about all the different Legos that are being built in Dotsama, like Centrifuge or Zeitgeist and so on, and everything you
yep.
could do with Oak. And then think about possible ways how you could combine them in the future, and you just get so many ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, no, I was just gonna say Zeitgeist is gonna be really cool. I think I finally met the exiled racers team, and I had been hearing about them, but I never really dug into it. But they're really smart and actually like it's just really brilliant how they're building this NFT based game on Moonbeam, but then it will also be integrated into Zeitgeist since it's like a fantasy racing game. Then Zeitgeist is going to offer betting markets for various races. So there'll be races. It's almost like Formula One, but with like characters that people own. And then, yeah, I think they'll even eventually go multi-chain. So yeah, Zeitgeist is going to be fun to watch because it'll be like fun things like that, like fantasy sports types of things. But then there'll also be markets for like potential like governance outcomes or parachain auctions or other things. So I think they should be live. I think before the end of the year. So another team to watch.
Yeah, I also think with Zeitgeist you have a lot of opportunities. I always come up with new use cases of how you could use them. At one
I
point,
know.
I was talking with the developers of Kilt, and because so we Donny Bigbags was having this idea of having a tournament on Moonsama tournament, and so I was writing back and forth with someone from Kilt if they could maybe wrap a Kilt client into a Minecraft client and use that as a referee that notarizes all the events that are happening, and then feed that as an oracle into Zeitgeist. The idea was funny, but I think it's a little bit too early. But maybe in half a year or a year or something, we could do something like this.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be a ton of examples like that. I remember Donnie talking about that, so should still try to make that happen.
Mm. Yeah, I see that we're coming into the last minutes of the hour. I have 2 blocks, but maybe one thing that would interesting me because I guess you're talking with a lot of teams, and I'm sure you cannot share all the conversations. But what is your outlook on the delivery in the next, let's say, 6 months, so until the end of the year, on what we could expect to see in the ecosystem happen more products launching, or maybe in a year? So what is your feeling about the velocity? Because maybe to explain a second, sometimes I feel that people are very impatient, and I understand it. I'm impatient too. I want all of the things happen now. But that's not the case in software development, and it's not the case when you're building financial products or new products like Web3 products. And so I'm usually asking people what their feeling is on what they're witnessing, what could be expected in the coming months.
Yeah, so I think let's see. So on the Polkadot side, I think part of it will be just continuing to ramp up, like where Kusama is now. With I saw that like the 40th parachain just won an auction, which is crazy. So there'll be a lot of work being done on the Polkadot side to build out these channels and get everything up and running. But the good thing about Polkadot is that most teams have already got experience on Kusama, so things are going to move a lot faster on the Polkadot side because a lot of teams were still kind of figuring it all out on Kusama. Like you guys, for example, you just did your bootstrap on Mangata X. When you do that on Mangata on Polkadot, it's going to be 10 times easier because you've already done it once. So that's one thing. And then, yeah, for us, like aUSD, we expect to be integrated into essentially every parachain on Kusama and Polkadot in the next 6 to 12 months. And then as teams continue to launch, just continuing to work on those integrations. And then also in the next year, there will finally be a pretty massive just application ecosystem on Polkadot, whether that's a chain that's optimized for a specific application, similar to how you guys have built a really good parachain for an exchange and for trading. So that will continue to happen, whether it's a chain like Mangata or whether that's a dApp ecosystem built on Acala or Moonbeam or others. That will continue to grow, I think, a lot faster over the next year or so. And then also, like, I've had a lot of conversations with the guys at Parity, and it's really encouraging to hear what's going on kind of on the BD side. Just a lot of great new parachain teams coming in. The Substrate Builders program is continuing to add a lot of value and get a lot of new applications for teams who want to build parachains on Polkadot. And then, yeah, I mean, that'll continue to grow. And then as soon as the market does drive some of this stuff, like, I don't know, like what we saw with Solana, the Solana price went crazy because it was for whatever reasons. And then that drove a lot of developer activity. For better or worse. And then the same thing will probably happen on Polkadot. Is right now we're in kind of like an infrastructure and kind of like technical building phase. We're setting up the foundation. And then as soon as a lot of these developers start to realize how insane Substrate is, there's going to be, I think, a huge flood of developers coming in to build on Polkadot, whether that's building parachains with Substrate and Rust, or whether that's building in Solidity in some of these EVM environments. So, yeah, and then I guess last I'll say we are, like I said, we're focusing on this, of course, on crypto native work, but in parallel, we're also doing a lot of work kind of in the space between Web 2 and Web 3. So we're going to be announcing some applications as well as integrations and partnerships that will continue to kind of expand Acala's reach into the Web 2 world and helping enterprises on the DeFi side, and then a lot of work coming with on-chain loyalty point programs. I wasn't expecting this to be a huge use case for us, but we're working with a partner called Bankman, who I'm actually going to be speaking at Decoded alongside. And he's going to be talking through some of the things that they're building, but actually extremely exciting what they're doing with bringing big brands, loyalty programs into blockchain. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Exciting times ahead.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed talking to you, but the hour is coming to a close. I'm asking you one last question. I would be interested to hear about what is driving you into crypto. Why are you here? And what would you like to see to happen, or how did this come to be?
Yeah, I got into crypto first in 2013. I went to Indiana University in the US, and I had a class about I just remember my mind was blown. We learned about like the the dark web and like the Tor Onion browser and Bitcoin, like all in one class. And I went home and I just like couldn't stop like searching and reading about it. And then I was still pretty young, just finishing school, and then crypto was more of a hobby and an interest, and then continued to grow as a hobby. And then I went into crypto for an internship before I was about to get an MBA. But I decided to cancel the MBA plans when my first crypto project gave me a full-time offer, because it was just crypto. It's just such a fun place to work because everything is so new. Like a lot of these things you just can't Google like how to do X,
bootstrap.
like how to run a crowd loan. This doesn't exist. So that's a really fun part, is just like it's complete blank space and just kind of like figuring it all out as we go. But then the other thing to me is, I don't know, like my whole outlook on life long term is like you need to live knowing that like whatever you do during your life is going to be what you're remembered for and what your legacy is. So to me, this is also one of the most impactful places that you could possibly work, because of the not only on like the financial industry, but just the impact that this tech is going to have on the entire just the course of history is really exciting. And for me, like I spend a lot of time in South America, and I've traveled a decent amount in my life to see that like not I'm from the US, like I said, but not everything is as kind of prosperous as some parts of the US. So to me, that's also the exciting part about this kind of tech, is to be able to get even like a 3% or 4% savings account into the hands of people in the favelas of Brazil, or into the hands of people in parts of Southeast Asia, or what have you. In Africa, like a lot of these countries, their currencies are just being completely ruined, and people just want a safe place to be able to take their hard-earned money and hold it in a place that will retain value. And I think crypto can provide that, and already is providing that. So that's the exciting thing to me, is to start seeing like real world examples of ways that crypto is actually improving the lives for people. There's a team called BitGreen that we're working with, who's launching on Kusama, I believe, but they're working with a bunch of projects around the world to help fund real world environmental projects. And we're hoping that we're going to be able to help them with aUSD. But that to me will be one of the coolest things, is to be able to fund, like, let's say a major project in Asia or in Africa using aUSD, but with another parachain team that we're working with, and being able to help the local community there. So anyway, that's kind of what drives me and what I'm interested in. And I think a lot of that's going to be able to come to life with Polkadot in the next few years.
Yeah, that's definitely also the direction that motivates me, is just the opportunities that we can be building, and the way that Web3 democratizes a lot of stuff, processes and ways how people can interact, and it is by this internet of value, and it might not even be money or whatever, but it's just the internet of value, and new ways that allow us to exchange value, and in some interesting way this gets transformed into allowing people to do new interesting things, or just create a savings account that is protected against whatever their government decides to do. Dan, it was very cool having you today and talk about Polkadot and Kusama and aUSD, and also the future and the next cycle of everything, and the opportunities we're having. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. And thanks everybody for joining.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. On Friday, we will have Tyrone Pan from Bifrost. You can see the event on Discord. And next week, I'm not sure. I think next week we're going to have people from, hope I don't say anything wrong. We're going to have people from Polka House and Chaos Style and talk about the community in Dotsama. I think that's next week. So you're going to see it in the announcements channel soon. And with that, I wish you a great week. May the Abel bless you with infinite rewards. See you soon.